Good morning. This is Gupta Ramesh from Morgan & Turnbull. We've been having a few security problems lately, so we've reviewed our delivery arrangements. First of all, until further notice, drivers should use the warehouse gate instead of the main factory gate. That's the one in Station Road. A second point I want to discuss is, as you have heard, we're issuing IDs to replace the general permits drivers are using at the moment. We're sending couriers with them tomorrow morning. They should be placed on the inside of the windscreen to activate the sensor in the gate. It's very important they don't forget to do it, because after this week, there'll only be automatic access to the yard. We're putting a stop to manual access. And finally, this is a safety measure to reduce vehicle movement in the yard. In future, drivers should proceed to the parking area before checking in at reception. I hope this is all clear. Please call me if you have any problem. Bye.
Hello, Frank Bauer speaking.
Hello, this is Antonia Radford from Speedlink. I'm phoning about a problem with our extension project at the factory.
I thought everything was on schedule.
So did I, until today. I called the site foreman because the air conditioning was due to be put in this week, but the subcontractors weren't there. They'd left a message that everything was on hold.
What reason did they give?
I thought it'd be a transport delay because the system's coming from the States. Apparently, though, there's a hold-up at the supplier's end. A quality control issue at the plant, actually.
I see.
Now, as you know, the rest of the construction work is more or less finished, but we can't start the assembly line until this system is operational for health and safety reasons. We were due to begin production next week.
Right. That's why we drew up a contract that allowed you to claim compensation in these circumstances.
Absolutely. So, could you please inform the building company we will be expecting that for each day's further delay?
Hello, John. It's Kim. You wanted some advice about your presentation.
Please. That's the first time I've given it, and I'm repeating it next month.
Well, the introduction was clear, and you finished on time without appearing hurried. The case study you analysed seemed a bit long, though.
You're right. I'll cut it a bit.
Now, the slides. You had the right amount. Personally, I'd use a larger font, though. It helps in a big hall, but the graphs made your point well.
Good. I worked hard at those.
Another tip, you didn't turn your back on the audience, but be careful not to block their view of the screen. It's frustrating if they can't see what the presenter's referring to.
I was so nervous.
You didn't sound it. You spoke very clearly. Think about your body language, though. You don't want to stand absolutely still, but avoid too much movement if you can.
Oh, that's really helpful.
You're welcome.
13. I thought he was a very interesting candidate with wide experience who would probably work effectively despite not having been to university. However, this job requires someone who can work closely with colleagues, and I'm not quite sure he'd be the team player we want. Although he's got possible leadership qualities, I think he'd be better in a job where he can make his own decisions, and that's not what we want for this position.
Well, she showed a lot of enthusiasm and ambition, and I liked the way she presented herself and expressed her ideas. Because she'd be working with young people, her youth would be an advantage. However, that's not enough for this job, which needs someone who's already worked in the industry, so the fact that she hasn't goes against her. She'd probably be the ideal candidate in a few years' time, once she's got the right track record.
15.
She was a difficult person to interview. although once she got going, her answers were very interesting. But in this business, we need young people who can express themselves assertively and clearly. It's a pity, because her background is very suitable, especially her ability to work alone and her qualifications. The salary we're offering was also very acceptable to her, but I don't believe she would be very good in face-to-face situations.
(16)
He's certainly got the determination to succeed. He's definitely very experienced in the field, and the MBA would have been an added bonus. He's very keen to get to the top of his profession, so I don't think he'd be content staying in one job for any length of time, and that could be a problem for us. If he aims to reach the top by the time he's 30, he'll need experience of several companies.
(17) He was a strange candidate. Lots of experience in the industry, according to his CV, although he hadn't got a degree, which is surprising considering the positions he's held before. And he's hoping to lead a team, but I don't think he showed enough determination or interest to work without supervision. He said he wants to leave his current job because he's bored there. 18.
My company's been doing annual appraisals for all employees ever since I started here. I thought it was a waste of time at first, just another boring thing to do, but I appreciate it now. In my appraisal, I looked back over the year and saw what I'd achieved, and that helped my belief in myself. Without the annual appraisal, I think time would slip by without my ever getting a real idea of my worth to the company.
19.
Most of my colleagues hate the annual appraisal. They're afraid of criticism and worried about what sort of information will go on their file, so they can't see the value of the whole thing. Not me. I've just had my latest interview, and I spent weeks planning it. Promotion is awarded according to a point system in my firm, but there's room for manoeuvre, and the appraisal is an opportunity to work your way onto the next step up the ladder.
20.
I'm a line manager, and I've just carried out the latest lot of appraisals for my staff. It's very time-consuming and difficult for me. I get on well with my team, and I don't want to spoil my relationship with them by saying the wrong thing. But nobody's perfect, and the appraisals have improved productivity by getting people to do something about their weaknesses. Constructive criticism is the key, but finding the right words is a problem.
21.
When annual appraisals first became general practice, we were pretty bad at it. As personnel manager, I called the staff into my office for a 10-minute chat. There was some form to fill in, and that was it. But nowadays, a lot of thought goes into the process, and the last round of appraisals was treated very seriously. I used questionnaires constructed to build up a profile of each employee so I could make informed decisions regarding training, promotion, etc.
22.
Appraisals have to be a positive encounter, and they must be confidential if the employees are to trust the process enough to be open. I'm a manager. When it comes to appraisals, my policy is to keep the initial review part short and spend longer discussing future projects. I treated my last lot of appraisals as a sort of question and answer session with my staff. Not everything that came out of the interviews was practical, but it was interesting to hear what they thought.
Today, I'm talking to Desmond Butler, Managing Director of ClickSet, the construction toy which every youngster wants. Welcome, Desmond.
Hello, Jenny.
So, how did it all start?
I'd been running my father's plastic component business, and I'd taken it as far as I could and was bored. We were producing makeup cases, eyeshadow, lipstick, mascara cases, and so on. It was a steady market, although very competitive, but I needed a new challenge. I was getting quite a good income from it, but money isn't everything.
So what gave you the idea for ClickSet?
I was at a wedding party, sitting in a corner, toying with plastic drinking straws on my table, thinking about the manufacturing process that made them. I began piecing them together and managed to build a small, flat structure. I realized that with the right connectors, I could build some impressive objects, and I thought this might be the seed idea for a new toy.
How did you plan to get started?
Well, my initial idea was to develop the toy and sell the concept to a big toy company. I would then retain the contract to make it and get them to sell it under their brand name. I didn't know anything about the toy market and thought it'd be better to leave the selling to the experts.
Did it take long to get a prototype ready?
Longer than I'd anticipated. I spent 18 months refining the straw idea with 6 lengths of rod connectors before the basic ClickSet was ready. Once I decided to go down the path, that was it. Nothing was going to stop me. If it was a total failure, it would set me back 5 years financially, but I believed it would catch on eventually.
So did you go ahead and set up your company then?
I tried to sell it to the big manufacturers who didn't want to know. I decided that as they weren't interested, I would learn their business and do it myself. I researched the toy industry thoroughly. I even applied for jobs in toy shops just so I could go to the interviews and find out more about the business. I also contacted as many store buyers as possible and asked what kind of toys they were looking for. I got a part-time job in a toy factory before setting up ClickSet in 1993.
And was it easy to sell your product?
At first, no. The biggest toy store initially turned me down, but finally I saw their chief buyer, Jim Taylor. He liked my business plan, but told me that what I had to offer probably had zero value to him. So I asked for 5 minutes to do a presentation, and I pulled out all the stops. I made a Ferris wheel, a windmill, and a bulldozer, and within a couple of minutes Jim Taylor was won over. I sold £1 million worth of toys through his store that first year.
An amazing success story. But it didn't stop there, did it?
No. Elto, one of the companies which had turned me down initially, contacted me and said they were interested in my designs after all. So I negotiated a deal with them to form a partnership to make ClickSet and market it abroad. I even persuaded them to buy 10% of my business for £10 million. They wanted a 50-50 partnership, but I wanted to keep control of my business.
Finally, Desmond, what do you put your success down to?
Well, however much you plan, you can never be sure how things will turn out. You have to make decisions and just live with the consequences. I've always learned something from my mistakes.
Well, thank you, Desmond, for your wonderful...